The rain came down so hard that morning it blurred the skyline of downtown Chicago into shades of gray. Daniel Carter checked his watch for the 5th time. 8:12 a.m. His interview was at 9 o'clock. Not just any interview. After 18 months of temporary jobs, rejected applications, late rent notices, and wondering how he'd explain another disappointment to his 8-year-old daughter, Lily, this was the opportunity he'd been praying, not wishing, but working, for. He had spent weeks preparing. His suit was pressed. His resume was printed on premium paper. Every answer had been rehearsed after Lily went to sleep. This job could change everything. As he hurried toward the glass office tower, his phone buzzed. A text from Lily. "Good luck, Daddy. You're going to do awesome. Remember what you tell me before my spelling tests, just be yourself." Daniel smiled despite the knot in his stomach. "Love you more than pancakes," he texted back. That had been their little joke ever since Lily was 4. He slipped the phone into his pocket and picked up his pace. Then he heard it. A sharp screech. A gasp. A crash. People froze. Umbrellas turned. Traffic slowed. Across the street, a woman had slipped on the rain-slick crosswalk. She hit the pavement hard. A delivery cart rolled into her, scattering folders across the flooded street. One ankle twisted beneath her awkwardly. She tried to stand. Couldn't. Dozens of people watched. Some pulled out phones. Others simply hurried around her. Daniel looked at the office building. Then at the woman. His interview. Her pain. The seconds stretched longer than they should have. He sighed quietly. "Guess life made the decision for me." He sprinted into the intersection. "You okay?" he asked, kneeling beside her. She tried to answer but winced. I think my ankle. It might be sprained." Rain soaked both of them within seconds. He gathered the papers that were floating toward the storm drain. Charts. Meeting notes. Contracts. He stuffed everything back into a leather portfolio. "You shouldn't move yet." "I have an important meeting," she whispered. Daniel laughed softly. "So do I." She looked surprised. "You should go." "And leave someone lying in traffic?" He shook his head. "My daughter wouldn't let me live that down." He waved toward a nearby security guard. "Can you call an ambulance?" The guard nodded. While they waited, Daniel removed his own suit jacket and folded it beneath her head to keep it off the wet pavement. The rain continued pouring. Minutes passed. The ambulance finally arrived. Paramedics helped stabilize her ankle. One of them asked, "Family?" She shook her head. Daniel answered before thinking. "I'm just someone who stopped." The paramedic smiled. "We wish more people did." By the time Daniel reached the office tower, it was 9:47. His shirt was soaked. His tie hung crooked. Mud stained one sleeve. The receptionist looked up politely. "Can I help you?" "I had a 9 o'clock interview." She checked her computer. "I'm sorry, Mr. Carter." Her expression softened. "The hiring panel finished 20 minutes ago." "I understand." He didn't argue. Didn't demand another chance. Didn't invent an excuse. He simply thanked her. As he turned toward the revolving door, disappointment settled over him like the rain still dripping from his hair. Outside, he stood under the building's awning for a long moment. He wasn't angry. Just tired. Sometimes life asked people to choose between doing what was right and doing what was easy. Doing what was right didn't always come with immediate rewards. Still, He knew he'd make the same choice again. That evening, Daniel tried to sound cheerful while helping Lily with her math homework. "So, how'd it go?" She studied his face carefully. "Kids notice things adults thought they hid." "I didn't get the interview." "Oh. I had to help someone." Lily set down her pencil. "Was she okay?" "I think so." "Then maybe that's more important." Daniel smiled. "You sound wiser than your dad." She shrugged. "You always tell me people remember how we treat them." He laughed quietly. "I guess I did say that." Dinner was simple. Macaroni and cheese. Apple slices. The power flickered once during the storm. After Lily went to bed, Daniel opened another job website. More applications. More uncertainty. His inbox was empty. Except one new email. Subject: request to meet tomorrow morning. No company name. No explanation. Just a downtown address. Daniel almost ignored it. Then curiosity won. The next morning, he walked into an elegant conference room overlooking Lake Michigan. He expected another interview. Instead, the woman from the crosswalk stood waiting. Her ankle rested in a walking boot. She smiled warmly. "You came." Daniel blinked. "You?" "I'm Evelyn Brooks." She extended her hand. "I'm afraid we never properly introduced ourselves yesterday." He shook it. "I'm glad you're feeling better." "I owe you more than thanks." "You don't owe me anything." She smiled again. "That's exactly what I hoped you'd say." Before Daniel could respond, the conference room doors opened. Several executives entered. One after another. Taking seats. Greeting Evelyn respectfully. Daniel looked around, confused. Then one executive said, "Good morning, Ms. Brooks." Daniel slowly turned toward her. She noticed the realization on his face. "Yes," she admitted. "I'm the CEO." His mouth opened slightly. "Wait. The company where you interviewed yesterday?" Daniel stared in disbelief. "I didn't know." "I know. And I'm glad you didn't." Evelyn folded her hands. "Yesterday morning I was rushing to an executive strategy meeting." She paused. "Do you know how many people walked around me?" Daniel stayed quiet. 32. She looked out the window. Security footage counted. She smiled faintly. "You were the only stranger who stopped." Daniel shifted uncomfortably. "Anyone would've." "No." Her voice was gentle. "They didn't." One executive leaned forward. "The interview panel told us you never arrived." "I didn't." "They assumed you simply missed it." Daniel nodded. "I figured I lost my chance." Evelyn opened the leather portfolio he'd rescued. Every paper was neatly arranged. "Because of you, I made my meeting." She laughed softly. "Though I was nearly an hour late." Daniel smiled. "I was worried your papers would wash away." They almost did. Silence settled for a moment. Then Evelyn asked, "Tell me something. If you had known who I was, would you still have stopped?" Daniel answered without hesitation. "I didn't help a CEO." He smiled. "I helped a person." The room stayed quiet. One executive whispered, "That's the answer." Daniel looked confused. "The answer to what?" Evelyn leaned back. "For years, our company has talked about values." She glanced around the room. integrity, leadership, compassion. But values written on a wall mean nothing unless someone lives them. She looked directly at Daniel. You lived them when nobody was watching. She slid a folder across the table. Inside was an offer letter. Senior Operations Manager. Salary. Benefits. Leadership Development Program. Flexible hours. Hybrid schedule. Daniel stared at the numbers. Then looked up. I didn't even interview. You already did. She smiled. The most honest interview I've ever seen. He swallowed hard. I don't know what to say. Say you'll think about it. He laughed. I don't need to think very long. Everyone laughed with him. The following weeks brought changes Daniel had barely dared imagine. The new salary meant stability. Lily no longer overheard whispered conversations with landlords. They moved into a brighter apartment closer to her school. Daniel coached her soccer team on weekends because his new schedule finally allowed it. Yet what surprised him most wasn't the promotion. It was the culture. Evelyn encouraged every employee to spend one paid day each quarter volunteering in the community. No publicity. No cameras. No social media campaigns. Just quiet acts of service. Daniel loved the idea. He organized teams to renovate neighborhood libraries. Mentor high school students. Deliver meals to seniors. The project strengthened coworkers in ways meetings never could. Kindness became part of the workplace, not because it was required, but because people saw its impact. Months later, Daniel noticed a young applicant sitting nervously in the company lobby. The man's shoes were worn. His resume had coffee stains. He looked embarrassed. Daniel remembered exactly how that felt. He walked over. First interview? The young man nodded. I'm terrified. Daniel smiled. I was too. They talked for 15 minutes. Nothing about corporate strategy. Nothing about profit margins. Just encouragement. When the applicant's name was called, he stood a little straighter. Later that afternoon, Evelyn passed Daniel in the hallway. You've started doing it. Doing what? The same thing you did for me. Daniel looked puzzled. Seeing people. He smiled. I guess kindness spreads. She nodded. It usually does. That winter, Lily's elementary school held an assembly about community heroes. Students were asked to invite someone who inspired them. Doctors came. Firefighters. Teachers. Veterans. Lily invited her dad. Daniel almost declined. I'm not a hero. She crossed her arms. You always tell me not to argue with my teacher. He laughed. Fair point. Standing on the school stage, Daniel felt far more nervous than he ever had in a boardroom. The principal asked him one simple question. What made you stop that rainy morning? Daniel looked at the children sitting cross-legged across the gym floor. Then at Lily smiling proudly from the front row. Finally, he answered. Because someday. I hope if someone you love needs help, someone else will stop, too. The gym became very quiet. Not because it was dramatic. Because every child understood. That evening, Lily slipped a folded note into Daniel's jacket pocket. He found it after she went to bed. It read. Dear Dad. You didn't miss your dream. You found the right one. Love you more than pancakes. Daniel smiled through misty eyes. The interview he'd lost had never truly been lost. It had simply arrived in a form he never expected. Because the greatest opportunities in life don't always begin with impressive resumes, perfect timing, or polished introductions. Sometimes they begin with a stranger on a rainy sidewalk. A moment when no one is watching. A choice between convenience and compassion. And the quiet decision to stop. Not because there's something to gain, but because another human being needs you. In the end, promotions fade. Job titles change. Business cards are replaced. What people remember, what truly echoes through families, workplaces, and communities, is the kindness we show when it would have been easier to keep walking. And perhaps that's the real success story. Not that one act of compassion led to a dream job, but that one simple decision inspired countless others to become the kind of person who stops, helps, and reminds the world that humanity is built one small act of kindness at a time.